All right, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt there taking a lot of questions surrounding that fatal shooting of a Minneapolis protester by a federal immigration officer. It's only adding fuel to now a fierce national debate. It's even prompted some fellow Republicans to question President Donald Trump's hardline immigration crackdown. For more, let's bring in our senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, also our legal contributor, James Sample. So, Selena, just starting with you, I mean, one line that Karoline Leavitt kept saying was just let cops be cops. Clearly taking the side of the immigration officers here, and that if, from what she's saying, protesters would just be calm, cool, and collected, that everything would run smoothly. But as we know, there are two sides to every story here.
Well, Kira, it's really interesting hearing the comments from the press secretary, because we're starting to see mixed messaging emerge from the White House, from the president, and some of his top officials. I mean, we did not hear her repeat some of the language that was used by the president's top aides, like Stephen Miller and other officials. We saw almost immediately in the aftermath of the deadly shooting that some administration officials were calling Alex Preddy a domestic terrorist who is trying to inflict maximum damage. When pressed why they jumped to those conclusions, Leavitt notably did not defend their comments. She said she speaks for the president. She said there's an ongoing investigation. She did, however, continue some unsubstantiated attacks that we've heard from the president, blaming local officials for the deadly shooting. I just want to read to you part of what she said. She said, quote, "This tragedy occurred as a result of a deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders in Minnesota." All of this coming as we have also seen a change in tone from the president as well in just the last few hours.
All right, and Mary Bruce, you were there. Oh, good. We've got our whole lineup now. We got James Sample. I have legal questions for you. Aaron Katersky, you, of course, have been on these shootings and what's happening in Minneapolis. But Mary Bruce, you were right there in the briefing. Karoline Leavitt still dodging the questions about domestic terrorism.
Yeah, and look, it is clear she's trying to walk a fine line here. The president is taking a very different tack now than what we saw over the weekend from his own top officials. And I asked her directly, does the president agree with Secretary Noem, with Stephen Miller, who were both very quick to label this an act of domestic terror, or to call Alex Preddy himself a domestic terrorist? And Karoline said that she hadn't heard the president, use that phrase, clearly trying to put some distance between him and the language that we've heard coming from some in this administration. But when I tried to follow up and say, well, then was the president, concerned that they were essentially rushing to this judgment? She wouldn't say. She continues to stress that the president wants to, see the outcome of this investigation. But that raises questions about the integrity of the investigation. How can the American public have faith in the outcome of an investigation when the head of the department that is running this has already come out and clearly taken sides and come to a conclusion? Karoline continued when asked a similar question to that, said that the president does believe that the investigation is credible and essentially that he looks forward to learning the results of this. What is clear is that I think this administration is trying to somehow lower the temperature here, but at the same time that they are sort of, softening their language a bit, Karoline Leavitt also making very clear that this administration continues to blame Democrats, blame Governor Walz, the mayor of Minneapolis, for the fact that this violence is occurring in the first place. So while the president and the governor may have had what they've described as a productive conversation, there clearly is a lot of finger pointing going on here, and the White House is trying to walk a fine line.
Well, as we know, video doesn't lie. And Aaron Katersky, we did learn in this briefing that there is body cam footage of the shooting. Apparently, DHS is going through that now. But Karoline Leavitt wouldn't commit to whether we would be able to see this video or not. What are your thoughts?
Well, the more video, the better, because it gives you a more complete picture. And what we've seen so far, I think, highlights a couple of different things, Kira. One is that the interaction started nonviolently. Alex Preddy is seen in the first video about 3 minutes before he's shot at a distance from the federal officers carrying out immigration enforcement. He appears to be recording with his phone their interactions on the street. The other thing you see is that his hands are visible the entire time. One hand on his phone, the other at one point seems to he uses as a shield from pepper spray. And at no point in the videos that we've seen so far does he brandish a weapon.
And let's talk about just the legal rights of a weapon. James Sample, you and I talked about this earlier on, about Preddy was a legal gun owner, had a permit to carry a concealed handgun. Karoline Leavitt was asked about gun rights and the ability to bring a gun to the protest. We were talking early on about Kash Patel, the FBI director, saying, do not bring your handguns to these protests. From a legal perspective, though, when they have a permit to carry, they are a legal gun owner, they can bring those to a protest, correct? And part two to that, Karoline Leavitt saying, and any gun owner knows that when you are carrying a weapon, when you are bearing arms and you are confronted by law enforcement, you are raising the assumption of risk. Your thoughts?
Well, Kira, with respect to Kash Patel's advice as a matter of precaution, it is true that taking a gun to a protest and an already tense situation does increase the risk that harm will occur. On the other hand, as a matter of law, Kash Patel is fundamentally incorrect in saying that because an individual was exercising his or her Second Amendment right to possess a permitted firearm during a period while exercising a First Amendment right to protest, there's nothing illegal or unlawful about that. In fact, the combination of the two is very much lawful. With respect to Karoline Leavitt's comment, I think it is reasonable to consider the perspective of an individual who is down on the ground and or being taken down, being pepper sprayed, and ultimately whose weapon is removed by others before they are shot and killed. I don't really understand Karoline Leavitt's argument, or except in as much as, there's an old fable that says tyrants will find a pretext to justify tyranny, which is to say that this is a convenient justification or an attempt at a convenient justification for the harm that occurred to Mr. Preddy, but certainly as a matter of Second Amendment rights and as a matter of Minnesota's statutory rights, he was within his rights to be there while exercising First Amendment rights. Mary,
do you get a sense the administration realizes this is spiraling, it's not going in the right direction, because now they're sending in Tom Homan, who is under Kristi Noem, DHS secretary, saying that he will now manage the ICE operations on the ground there in Minnesota. And then there's this call that the president had with Governor Walz. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the administration is clearly trying to quell the outcry over what happened in Minneapolis over the weekend. I think they are well aware of the outcry over all of this and the pushback that this administration is receiving. And the president is clearly changing his tone a little bit here. They're trying to sort of soften some of the language coming out of here, and the change in who is on the ground. The fact that the borders are Tom Homan is now going to be leading this certainly sends a message loud and clear.
All right, Selena, James, Mary, Aaron, thank you all so much.